Hello valuers, welcome back to the channel. So today we will continue our last session on Rent Control Act, which was under your subject law of real estate. I have told you that rent control laws are in your syllabus, and we have covered almost 60% of its part. Today we will see the third lecture, and today's topic of discussion is mostly it will be Gujarat Rent Control Act, and after that we will see some rights and duty of tenants, and then we will see an important topic which will be the highlight for today's topic. The name of the topic is Effect of Rent Control Act on Valuation. This topic is mentioned in your IBBI syllabus, so please be with me till the last slide of this lecture. I know some of you might think that why we are reading the Gujarat Rent Control Act, but believe me valuers, when you will practice you will not get time to read all these sections, but when you are a student you can put some extra effort and can get knowledge of these acts also. I do not reside in Gujarat or Maharashtra. That doesn't mean that I should not know the law which is applicable there. Gujarat Rent Control Act has some additional provisions which was not there in Maharashtra Rent Control Act, and we will discuss only those sections which are not there. Okay, so let's start our today's session. And I know the law is a bit boring for you, but be with me, it will be helpful to you. So let's start today's session, and thanks for your positive response on all my social media posts where I have mentioned about these lectures, and I am seeing lots of valuers are giving feedbacks, and I am trying to improve all of these things, but it will take some time because I am managing all these things by my own. So please keep patience and keep supporting me. Thank you. So let's start. Okay, what is the first topic? It's Gujarat Rent Control Act and its provision. So most of the old provisions of Bombay Rent Control Act of 1947 has been retained as they were even after amendments of Gujarat Act of 2001, which is effective from 5th of November 2001. We will see only those sections which were not in Maharashtra Rent Control Act. I have mentioned it and highlighted these lines because you will be confused that why we are reading the exemptions again, why we are reading the definitions again. We are reading them again because they have little bit difference. So do not get confused with my last lecture on Rent Control Act where I have discussed exemptions. Those exemptions were for Maharashtra Rent Control Act. Okay, and today we are discussing for Gujarat. Okay, Rent Control Act was applied by state government, or I should say Rent Control Act was made by state government, so they have little bit difference, and today we are seeing that difference only. So first section 3.2, which is differ from Maharashtra Act, says about period. This section was introduced in Gujarat Amendment Rent Act 1963 by Gujarat Act 26 of 2001. It simply says Rent Act shall remain in force to and inclusive of 31st March 2011. This provision is not existing in the 1999 Act of Maharashtra, as it is no more a temporary act but a permanent act. So, to extend the period of Rent Control Act, I should say, they introduced this section. So, we have studied. Some exemptions were there in Gujarat Rent Control Act, which is differ from our previous act, Maharashtra Rent Control Act. So we are studying these exemptions. First exemptions list under section 4. Non it talks about non-applicability of Rent Act to certain premises. First is section 4.1. The act shall not apply to any premises belonging to government or local authority. Okay, this I should say this provision was there, but the language was a bit different. Section 4.1a subclause A, this section says the act shall not apply to any premises constructed on or after the commencement of Gujarat Rent Control Act, Second Amendment Act 2001. Okay, so this was the period when the Gujarat Rent Control Act was effective for a period of 10 years from this date. Okay, you don't have to remember these dates or these sections, just you have to listen so that you can understand what the Rent Control Act is trying to say. Okay, in the heading, which is the effect of Rent Control Act on valuation, I will conclude all of the fundae, I should say, which is behind these sections and all. Section 4.1b, section 4.1ab, what it says, the act shall not apply to any existing premises which are self-occupied by the owner or are vacant on or after the commencement of Second Amendment of 2001 and are let after such commencement. This is the date for a period of 10 years from 5/9/2001. Okay, so this is also a exemption as earlier. Okay, so किसी एग्जिस्टिंग प्रीमिसेस पे नहीं लगेगा जो कि लैंडलॉर्ड ने खुद एक्वायर किया हुआ है या तो वेकेंट है कमेंसमेंट ऑफ सेकेंड अमेंडमेंट. ओके, सो this is an excellent provision made in the Rent Act. Why? A person can let and lease the premises up to 4th of September 2011 and market rent without any fear of rent reduction or non-ejectment. Because of this section, the rent was market rent after this date. Okay, since the provisions of the act are not applicable to such premises for a period of 10 years with effect of this date up to this date. Okay, so this was a good amendment. Definition of premises is a bit different here in Gujarat Act. So let's see. You all know about this definition. Premises, so how it defined here: any land not being used for agriculture purpose is called premises, and any building other than farm building is called premises here. Okay, in Maharashtra Rent Control Act, and this was a bit different. Okay, so you have to remember, if question asks you about Gujarat Act, the definition is different. If question asks you about Maharashtra Act, the definition is different. Lot of valuers do this mistake. You have to keep this in mind. Okay, now we are moving towards rights and duties of tenants. So let's see what are the rights. They are very easy. Just read these lines, you will understand what it says. Okay, mm, first is section 11b, which talks about rights and duties of tenants. uh, Section 11b of Amendment Act of 2001, this provision gives right to the tenants in a new building when the premises are damaged or destroyed due to natural calamity like earthquake, flood, cyclone, etc. Okay, so this is the right of tenant. Right, what is the right? He can claim his tenancy, okay, in new building if it got damaged from the natural calamity. Section 11A of Gujarat Act 1963, this is very unusual provision in the Rent Control Act. Why it is unusual, you will understand. It states that whereby the reason of any right, right होता है दंगा, और वॉयलेंस ऑफ अ मॉब, अगर भीड़ कोई वॉयलेंस करती है, एनी मटेरियल पार्ट ऑफ द प्रीमाइसेस इन अ डिस्टर्ब्ड एरिया इज होली डिस्ट्रॉयड और rendered permanently unfit for the purpose for which it was let. So मान लीजिए कोई बिल्डिंग आपने रेसिडेंशियल पर्पस के लिए ली थी और किसी मॉब के द्वारा या किसी दंगे के कारण आपकी बिल्डिंग डैमेज हो जाती है और आप वो आपके रहने लायक नहीं है, तो सेक्शन 11A आपको कुछ राइट्स देता है. What they are? So first is the landlord shall erect the new building at the original site subject to provisions of rules of local authority. Okay, the rules will be applicable, which is applicable by local authority, not later than 15 months. There is a time bound period for it from the date of such a destruction of the building due to right or violence of mob. Okay, this was the first. And second is the tenants shall have the right to occupy a tenement in the new building erected at the original site by the landlord. Okay, so if new building is constructed by the landlord, the tenant have the right to claim his tenancy. Okay, landlord cannot say to the tenant that you cannot let my premises. Okay, so section 11b, this is similar provision for the house destroyed due to natural calamity. Reconstruction period is however fixed at 15 months. Their reconstruction period was 15 months, here it is 12 months. Okay, section 15A of Gujarat Act 1963, it shall not be lawful to any tenant to give premises or any part thereof of license for monetary consideration without the previous permission of the landlord. Okay, so this section 15A talks about the written permission of the landlord before giving license to another tenant or transfer his tenancy, okay, or get any monetary consideration. Section 17D 1A, what it says, where a landlord fails to erect a new building within 15 months as specified under section 11A, which I was talking about a bit prior, and within 12 months in case of situations specified as 11B. 11B is this, the property shall vest in the state government free from encumbrances for the purpose of erection of new building to provide accommodation to the tenants, and there shall be paid to the landlord such compensation for such sites as may by order be determined by the collector. Okay, if he fails to reconstruct, he has to give some compensation. which was determined by the collector. You have to remember this only. Okay, section 17D(1)(a) talks about it. Okay, recovery of premises. We have talked about it in Maharashtra Rent Control Act also. We will talk about it here, but it is different from that. So how it is different, we are looking at it. In Gujarat Rent Act, there is no provision of recovery of possession of premises given on license by the landlord to the licensee. Okay, there is no provision of recovery of possession. Okay, but in Maharashtra there was recovery of possession. Here it is not. Section 24(1) of Maharashtra Act 1999 provides for competent authority enforcing the recovery of possession from licensee. Section 24(1), if you remember, of Maharashtra Act, which I was talking while I was teaching you the Maharashtra Act. It says that the competent authority can decree the possession. Okay, here it is not. There is also no provision for legalizing the acceptance of premium amount for tenancy. So there is no provision of premium if you sublet the property for tenancy of premises by landlord or tenant in Gujarat Act, like section 56 of Maharashtra Act 1999. In previous lecture, I have talked about section 56, which permit the landlord to get the share of compensation or extra amount which he is getting after subletting the premises, but here it is not permitted. On the contrary, section 18 of the Gujarat Act 1963 prohibits acceptance of premium by landlord, and section 19 of the Gujarat Act prohibits acceptance of premium by tenant for surrender of or transfer of tenancy. So in Gujarat Act there is no provision of transfer of tenancy. So you have to remember, if there is no provision of transfer of tenancy, here no value, you cannot take value in consideration if you are transferring the tenancy. If a client asks you to do so, please say no, because in Gujarat it is not permitted. Okay, section 25(1) Gujarat Act 1963 provides that a landlord shall not use or permit to be used for a non-residential purpose any premises which were used for residential purpose. Okay, this provision was there also, that any residential building cannot be tenanted to the commercial or any other purpose. So the same provision is section 25(1) in Gujarat Act. Okay, effect of Rent Control Act on valuation. This is the heart of today's lecture. Okay, so please listen to me clearly, so this topic is clear to you, because if you do not want to pay attention to the Gujarat Act, it will not affect you much, but if you will not listen this carefully, this will affect. Okay, how you will listen? So it talks about the effects which Rent Control Act made on the valuation of the property. I'm sorry for the disturbance. There are many messages coming for the link. So I'm sorry for that. So let's see. The Rent Control Act have been in force since more than 60 years. Okay, now it has been 16 years in various states of India. In some areas like rural areas and less populated towns, it has less effect. Okay, so Rent Control Act has greater effect in metropolitan and the more populated city. Okay, it has adverse effect on market values of property in particular and on the society as a whole in general. These effects of Rent Control Act can be summarized in this. Okay, these are the effects. So due to frozen rent provision and meager rent income from house properties, landowners are discouraged from constructing new buildings for letting purpose. Okay, the owners are not constructing new building for uh, renting out. This further aggraved already acute housing shortage in towns of India, which has limited housing stock in the entire country. If there will be no new construction, how you will find new buildings uh, to live in? So what happened? The existing building which was let out and got more clients, and this put more pressure to the economy, or I should say more pressure to the housing. In view of the low rental income and increased cost of repairs and maintenance, landlords discontinued maintaining and repairing buildings. So they were not getting sufficient rental income. So they have no choice. They were not maintaining their buildings. So what happened? This resulted into severe deterioration of the existing inadequate housing stock. So the housing stocks got deteriorated, and several old buildings collapsed, and valuable human lives were lost. So this is very unfortunate, but it is the harsh truth. We have to accept it. An illegal system of payment of salami, pagdi, premium, key money to the landlords or to the tenant, especially for vacating the premises, came into existence to compensate for pegged down rent of the let out premises. So what happened? The Rent Control Act was affecting the rent. So what happened? Landlord started to offer some money to the tenants for vacating his premises. So some illegal money came into system, and also you all know about pagdi. So some people started taking pagdi. So it is also a form of illegal money. So it came into existence to compensate for pegged down rent. Okay, so it is unfortunate, but it is the sad truth. We have to study about it. The next point is the ad hoc system of premium also damaged ethical and moral standards of the society in general. Even honest person do not hesitate to give and take large sums of unaccounted black money for creation of transparency. So it was very unfortunate, and people started doing this as a regular practice. So the social ill effect as consequence of Rent Control Act is that the relations between landlords and tenants, which were which was which were more or less cordial prior to the Rent Control Act, have become strained and if not hostile after this act. Such attitude has also then percolated to the society in general. So the relation between landlord and the tenant was affected due to this Rent Control Act. The value of even newly built up tenanted properties fell down subsequently much below its cost of acquisition or construction. So this was the condition, that people were not getting what they have invested. Such a reduction in value and freezing rents at levels lower than a fair market rent was artificial. Because of the Land Control Act, we were manipulating the rent and against natural open market forces. So we were against the market forces. So this is not good for economy. Okay, the Rent Control Act have also pegged down municipal revenues from property taxes, since rateable values are those values on which the concerned authority calculate taxes have been limited to standard rent or control rent by many decisions of the courts. So uh, we cannot charge below above the standard rent. So what the organizations were doing, they were calculating the tax on standard rent, or and this tax comes out naturally very low. So this was damaging our economy. So new provisions in rent control acts are indicative of the fact indicative to, of the fact that state government have started realizing the setback to the economy and development in general caused by the Rent Control Act. I was talking. Introduction of Section 56 in Maharashtra Act 1999, which legalized acceptance of premium by landlords, is the proof of resistance of market forces to artificial controls and failure of government in trying of control artificially rental market in the urban areas. So by introducing section 56, government has accepted the pagri or salami. So it was the failure of the government and it was indicating the artificial control. So similarly, provisions of section 4(1)(a) subclause A and B in Gujarat Rent Control Act 1963 in the year 2001, exempting tenancies in new constructions and owner occupied premises for a period of 10 years from 5/9/2001 from Rent Act application is an indication of need to scrap the Rent Control Acts. So these acts was indication that Rent Control Act is damaging our society and our economy as a whole. This provision will have good effect on rental market. Okay, so they exempted some premises. I have talked about these provisions in the Gujarat Control Act. Rental premises will be readily available on limited period tenancies at market rentals. Such premises will be governed by provisions of Transparency Act. You have, I must say, you should know about that fact that people are doing 11 months of agreement with the tenants, so that they somehow get relaxation from rental acts or rent control acts. The reason is this, because if they will do 11 months agreement, they will be safeguarded by rent control acts. So below 11 months, below 1 year, it comes under transfer of property act. So why they started doing 11 months agreement? So the short period is there. So we are talking about that such premises will be governed by provisions of Transparency Act. Similarly, section 3(1)(a) of Maharashtra Act 1999, exempting from the Rent Act tenancies of limited companies having 1 crore paid up capital, is a first step in the right direction. Those who have ability to pay market rent have been excluded from the operation and the benefit of Rent Control Act and are subjected to market forces of demand and supply in the rental market. So if you remember, I have talked about this provision where the companies or private companies whose paid up capital is 1 crore, they were excluded from the Rent Control Act and they have to pay market rent. This was a step towards the correction. Okay, so our next point of discussion: central government also attempted to scrap age-old Delhi Rent Control Act of 1958 by approving Delhi Rent Act of 1995. However, due to heavy resistance of tenants in Delhi, this new act could not be enforced till today. in spite of legislative approval and President's assent to this act on 23rd 8 1995. Okay, so this was the reason why we are not able to scrap the Rent Control Act. So central government tried that, but the tenants, they are not allowing the government to do this. Apart from loss to the landowners and building owners, this act caused great economic loss to the local authorities, the state or and center governments. This has been of a major ill effect on environment. So the local authorities are facing the loss because of the Rent Control Act. Property taxes levied by the local authorities but directly linked with rental income, and since the rental income has been frozen under the Rent Act, income to the local authorities from property tax has also remained frozen in spite of the increased cost of services being provided to the citizens. Okay, so the court have decided the rent was very low, the tax was very low, so the property tax was affected, and due to the Rent Control Act. Okay, so to overcome this shortfall, some local authorities increase the rate of the taxes as high as at 120% of the rental values, which is prima facie is absurd. So some municipalities started taking 120% tax. The central government has also lost income tax on income from house properties due to low rental income from let out premises. It is also losing income from wealth tax due to low value of properties in view of frozen rents. So what was happening? Due to the frozen rent, the central government was facing losses and the state government was facing losses. And the wealth tax, because some properties was come into wealth tax, so the wealth tax was also low. The state governments are also losing stamp duty income due to low stamp sales of rented properties. Okay, so the judiciary is also facing an unnecessary heavy burden due to thousands of eviction suit filed by landlords. This is also due to the rent control. Similarly, with a view to avoid eviction, tenants have filed standard rent or rent reduction cases in the courts in large numbers during last 60 years. So the judiciary also faces problems because the Rent Control Act. And let's see let's see some lines here. It is absurd that tenants are paying rupees 20,000 to a lawyer as his fee to fight a rent reduction case, mentioning in the rent reduction application that the rent of rupees 25 per month for his tenement is high and it should be reduced and fixed at rupees 15. So what happening here? So people are paying 20,000 to reduce the rent by 10 rupees. Okay, so what is this? This is nonsense. The spurt in the activity of ownership apartment is partly due to non-availability of rental premises due to Rent Control Acts and partly due to high prices of land and a higher construction cost. So we have discussed that due to Rent Control Act, the landlords was not getting what he have invested, so they stopped making new buildings, and the old buildings faced some challenges and they got demolished. So now what is happening, the rental values got increased further. This seems to be the only good effect of the Rent Control Act. In view of such ill effect of Rent Control Acts on the economy in general and harm caused to housing and development activities, various committees appointed by the central and state governments have recommended to scrap the Rent Control Acts. However, seems that no government has taken such bold step due to political reasons. Okay, so this is the conclusion, and this is the effect of Rent Control Act on the valuation of the property. So I hope you will get the points. So I will say one thing: if you are feeling bored by this lecture, make some 2 to 3 portion of these lectures and watch them after taking some break. You have that liberty. So thank you, and please keep supporting. I must say, people are giving feedbacks and taking participation in the feedback also. I will try to make as many videos I can in the short time. Thank you. Just keep patience.